Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pray First Conversation. We have Monday through Friday right here on the Pastor Doug page at 7 o'clock. About 20 minutes we conversate. So I want you to get in here. This is an interactive conversation. I want you to hashtag live. If you're joining us during the 7 o'clock hour, hashtag record. If you're joining us at any other time, also hashtag shared. Put this out on your page. It means an awful lot to me and the Pray First family when you share it with your friends list, because guys, our whole friends list do not see this, not including mine. Pray First gets picked and chosen by the algorithms through Facebook. So when all of you share it and you comment on it, and they're called interactions, it greatly increases our reach. So I appreciate all of you guys for doing that. Today we're going to talk about something that's common to us all. How many of you have ever made a decision and maybe you knew at some level that this is probably not the best decision, but it's not a sin. It's going to be okay. We think it's going to be okay. How many of you, let me just ask you point blank, have ever made a decision and looked back and thought, why did I do that? Maybe you're doing something right now, or you're going through something now, and you've asked yourself, why did I do that? Let's hit some hearts. Let's hit some thumbs. Go crazy on those things right now. Come on. Hit the hearts. Hit the thumbs. Go crazy on those. And if you're wondering, well, what is that bouquet of emoji flying up the side of my screen beside the chat? That is our Pray First family welcoming you guys to Pray First. You first-time viewers, maybe you saw it in your news feed. Maybe one of your friends tagged you in it. Come on, everybody. If you can reach the hearts and thumbs, we really need these. It's to welcome everyone. It is also to get those interactions up so that the Pray First broadcast will be put on more pages. So that's another way that you can share it, is by interacting. So congratulations to all of you guys who are awesome. Have you ever done something and looked back and wondered, why did I do that? At the time, it seemed like the right thing to do, though there was some hesitation. Maybe you knew that it wasn't the best thing to do, but it wasn't wrong, okay? I want you guys to understand that some of the decisions we make aren't sinful and they're not wrong. They're just not in God's timing, or they're feeding something inside of us that does not need to be fed. Do you know that some of the decisions we make are feeding a hole or a void inside of us that we should have filled by something other than what we're filling it with? So we'll talk about that today. We've talked about the four kings. Well, we've talked about three so far. The three kings of Babylon during the 70-year captivity of the children of Israel. The children of Israel are taken into captivity because they ignored the principles of God. I need you to hashtag ignored the principles of God. Why were the children taken into captivity? Because they ignored the principles of God. God had given them a way to make sure that the land that they were living in stayed fertile, that it continued to have the minerals and the nutrients that it required in that land to produce food and to produce, crops for their families. And they, for 490 years, ignored the principles of God. And God didn't punish them for it. This is so important, because some of you think you're sick because God's getting you back. Some of you think things are breaking because God's getting you back. Some of you think that you're going through what you're going through because God's getting you back. God's not getting you back. God poured out all his wrath on Jesus Christ on the cross. So God doesn't punish you, but God does discipline, adjust, and course correct your life. And when God comes in there and he starts disciplining, and he starts adjusting, and he starts course correcting your life, the enemy is there to try to destroy the work that God's trying to do in you, because God is trying to cause your character to support a greater destiny. So pride comes, and we've talked about Nebuchadnezzar. He was the king, and boy was he prideful. When he started taking all the glory, when he started accepting all the glory from men, when he started building statues in his honor, when he told people to bow and worship to him, when he looked out over all he'd done, and he took all the credit and he took all the glory, God put him in timeout. God didn't punish him. God disciplined him. And when he looked up and gave Elohim, El Shaddai, the glory, when he gave God Most High the glory, God restored him. And he became a faithful king. But then his grandson, Belshazzar, come into the picture and saw the handwriting on the wall, heard the word of the Lord, heard and saw and was made known Jehovah God, and still made himself God, still created himself to be, the Most High King. And he was never really the king. His dad Nabonidus was, because his dad Nabonidus married his mama, who was the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar. So he never really knew who he was. He was a wannabe king. But he had pride. And he was deceived, and he was stubborn, though he'd seen the handwriting on the wall. Come on, how many of us have made decisions? Though we've seen the handwriting on the wall, we've heard the word of God concerning the principles of God. Remember why the children of Israel were in the captivity was because they ignored the principles of God. We've seen it, we've heard it, we've been made known the principles of God, yet through pride, through arrogance, deception, and stubbornness, we make different decisions, and then we end up in timeout. Okay, so come here. Today we're going to continue talking about Darius. Darius who was deceived. Darius being the third king, though he also, like Belshazzar, was not really king. Cyrus was the king. Cyrus was the king of the Persian Empire that sent Darius down to besiege and overtake Babylon. Okay, so Darius was a general. When Darius killed Belshazzar outside the gate with a candelabra, and then Belshazzar rerouted the Euphrates River, when Belshazzar's army could not take what was coming under their wall, which was the Persian Empire, you see, Darius was a Mede. He always felt lesser. He was never part of the up and outers. He was never really king. He was the Smiths when everybody else wanted to be the Joneses. The Persians were the Joneses, but he was always going to be second class. So he always felt second class. So Darius was deceived. Number one, hashtag number one, everybody. Listen, because this is for all of us. Don't just think this is some kind of 2,000 or 3,000 year old history lesson. This is for us. Number one, pride opens the door to deception. Pride opens the door to deception. Darius is going to be deceived today. Darius is going to be told that Daniel is wonderful and great, and your king, oh great king, are wonderful and great. So they begin to feed his pride. They throw gasoline on his pride, and his deception grows so great because of the hole inside of him. The hole inside of him is he does not know who he is. He is identifying himself as a lesser. He's identifying himself as a second-class citizen. He's identifying himself as lesser than the Persians because he's a Mede. He knows he's not really king. He has a title, but he knows he's not really the king, so he kind of feels inside it, like the little person syndrome. I'll never be as big. I'll never be as great. I'll never be as smart. I'll never be as important. He come from, like the Chaldeans, the land of Ur. I'm always going to be less-er, dumb-er, poor-er, sick-er. I'll never be great-er. And it was really beginning to eat inside of him. So the people around him realized that, and they used it to deceive him to get to Daniel. Guys, don't be a part of the enemy's plan to hurt someone else. I hope you're listening. Goodness Lord, this is so much at one spot. The enemy isn't just planning on hurting you through his deception. He's planning on hurting those around you, especially those who are under your authority, under your covering. So fathers, listen up. Mothers, listen up. Managers, supervisors, listen up. A politician, government officials, listen up. Men of the community, listen up. Teachers, pastors, everybody listen up. You see, Satan had a bigger plan than just deceiving Darius. Through Darius, he wanted to destroy, come on. He wanted to destroy Daniel. All right? So your little piece of the pie that you think, what I do is not going to hurt anybody else, and if I make a mistake, it's my life, it's not going to hurt anybody else. Satan never just hurts you. Satan hurts the ones who love you. Oh man, that's big. Okay, so we got to keep going, okay? I'll teach on that another time. Pride opens the door to deception. Daniel chapter 6. I can't hardly breathe. It's just amazing. Daniel chapter 6, verses 1 through 9. Darius the Mede, it's important that we designate that because there's another one who's a Persian, but this is Darius the Mede. Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom that belonged to Belshazzar, the kingdom of Babylon, into 120 provinces, and he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. The king also chose Daniel and 2 others as the administrators to supervise the high officers. So Daniel and these 2 other guys were over 120 other guys who were over the different provinces of Babylon. The king chooses Daniel and 2 others to administrate and supervise over the high officials and to protect the king's interest. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and the high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. So Daniel was about to be over the entire empire. Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs, but they could not find anything to criticize or condemn Daniel for. Daniel was faithful, responsible, and completely trustworthy. So they concluded our only chance at finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion. Verse 6, so the administrators and high officers went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius." What are they appealing to? They're appealing to his hole inside of him. These administrators are going to use his pride. They're going to use his stubbornness. They're going to use his deception. They're going to use his inability to see who he is and know who he is. They're going to feed his need to have a hole filled inside of him with "I'm the king." So they say, "Long live King Darius. Long live your great majesty. Long live, come on, you're the man, okay? You're the man. Long live King Darius. We are all in agreement." Hashtag we're all in agreement. Everybody wasn't in agreement. There was only 3 of them, and Daniel was 1/3 of them that was not in agreement with what they're about to say. They say, "We are all in agreement. We administrators, officials." Daniel was not in agreement. They're telling the king that Daniel is in agreement. They are speaking behind Daniel's back. The enemy always has a plan behind your back. The enemy will use your words against you. The enemy will say things you didn't say. The enemy will say you did things you didn't do. These 2 officials, 2/3 of this group of supervisors, over 120 administrators, are going to the king and saying, "We are all in agreement." Well, Daniel wasn't in agreement.